Lane, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
Chapter 4, Cause and Effect. Verse, Our attitudes determine our altitudes. A.P. Gothy. Dear friend, it is not enough merely to write. My purpose is to help you harmonize and enhance your life. That is, if you wish it. And if so, please allow me to come into your thoughts daily by turning to these pages, even for a single idea, before beginning your silent time. For it is very much more effective if we can find a note of inspiration to lift our spirits as we fly away with that elusive bird called imagination. Look for sources of inspiration on every side, a book, a poem, a lovely piece of music, flowers, a glorious sunrise or sunset, an entrancing sky, or anything that lifts your spirit. This sets a tone of your enriching adventure in the inner domain of imaginal experience. Let us look at some fascinating facts. Cause must precede effect. Effect is the mirror of cause. It is against all the laws of the universe that something should occur without a cause. Things and conditions cannot initiate themselves. All experiences and circumstances are objective effects of subjective causes. In our human condition, either knowingly or unknowingly, by commission or omission, we initiate the cause of our experience by our dominant thought patterns, beliefs, and attitude. After becoming aware of the creative nature of our thoughts, I set about regrooming my own mental habits. I became more and more alert to the quality of my expression and recognized them as the subjective cause of my conditions and circumstance. I saw that many of them reflected unconscious negative attitudes that I had absorbed since childhood. Expressions such as, "That's just my luck," or "Wouldn't you know that would happen?" "Oh, I knew it wouldn't work." These and others like them are powerfully destructive, for our thought patterns are the blueprints of our experience. Begin to survey your attitudes as they are reflected in your speech, and you will see the causes of the conditions of your life. Many times I found myself halfway through a negative statement when I recognized it and stopped, finishing with "No, I don't want to say that." One lady said that when replacing her negatives with positives, as soon as she recognized the destructive element of her words, she quickly added, "Cancel," and reversed her remark. We must become conscious of our thoughts, attitudes, and speech habits before we can begin to replace them with those which will produce the desired effect. Even though patterns to which we have been long conditioned can be revised within only a few weeks by becoming aware and alert to their quality. Any undesirable condition is a signal that we are sustaining it by the mental habits from which it derives its energy. Unless we change the cause, the effect will continue. Please do not try forcefully to stop a habit, for attention energizes its object. This creates a stressful conflict as force is met with resistance. We should neither resist nor pursue, rather quietly and happily accept the ideal condition and proceed normally from there. If you are not already doing so, you will find it growth-promoting to observe others, their positions, conditions, and speech habits. You will come to recognize and cause in the effect. You will see people as self-programmed states of consciousness and action. This is not judgmental, but discerning. Discernment makes no judgment of the person, but perceives the circumstance as that of subjective conditioning. To one who has developed this insight, everything about ourselves shouts who and what we are, how we feel about ourselves, and our degree of self-worth. Our eyes and glances, our changing facial expressions and responses, our posture, hands, gestures, tones, manner of speech, all these, plus the subtleties of all that we radiate, comprise the quality and caliber of our presence. Emerson said it marvelously, "What you are thunders so that I cannot hear what you say." Knowing this, what should be the nature of a response? We should identify with embody, as in the present, all that we admire and aspire to be. As quoted elsewhere, William James noted, "Act the part, and you will become the part." So if we would be healthy, happy, and fulfilled, it is essential that we learn the principles, laws, and processes of that all-important magical pair, cause and effect. If you will create the cause, the effect will take care of itself. In the Far East, this might be equated with the ox cart, the ox being the cause and the wheel tracks being the effect. So do not concern yourself with the effect of your desire. Rather be faithful to your daily practice and try to extend your self-identification and sense of fulfillment, with all of its joys, to longer and longer periods throughout the day, until your new role in life becomes permanently established. Are you ready, my friend, to take responsibility for the events and circumstance of your life? If not yet, you will come to see that we are self-made products of our own thought. And if there is anything we would change, it must begin with a change in our thoughts. Cause and effect equals reward and punishment. If our thoughts and actions promote life, harmony, greater knowledge, healthy progress and prosperity, we are self-rewarded. If we violate the natural order of life and the inherent rights of others, we are self-punished. There is no more worthy endeavor than to learn the natural laws of our mind, which are impersonal and self-initiated. There is no one rewarding or punishing us for our action. We invoke the quality of the result by the quality of the causes we set in motion. It is all a matter of activating by our thoughts and actions natural laws which are in harmony with life and the well-being of all whom they affect. Knowingly or unknowingly, by commission or omission, we are self-rewarded and self-punished. In regard to experience and circumstance being the mirror of our mind, it could be reasonably asked, how am I responsible for this or for that accident, illness, or misfortune? I did nothing to cause it. The question is simple, but the answer complex, in that the cause is likely to be lost in a chain of domino effects concerning the influence of our inherited genes, our early and unconscious conditioning, and our own self-programming. Add to this our changing frequencies, wavelength, polarity, and other interacting forces. All these create a predisposition toward that which is in harmony or in conflict with the natural order of life. This week a scientific statement was released to the effect that the buildings in Mexico City, which were demolished in the recent earthquake, were in the same frequency as that of the earthquake. The others were untouched. Unless our lives are planned, organized, and moving directly toward our goals, we are weaving back and forth across the speeding freeway of life. We must have a purpose, a clearly defined project, and cleave to our direction. If we don't know what we want or how to begin, we can still succeed very well with the following practice. It is simple, easy, and powerfully creative. It takes very little time, but it must be done regularly, as in keeping the fire burning to keep the tea kettle boiling. First, we must activate a desirable cause. Effect takes care of itself. Sit comfortably, relax, close your eyes. 1. Think of someone and visualize them in perfect harmony in every possible way. See them ultimately ideal, active, fulfilled, and radiantly healthy and happy. Hold this vision about 2 minutes. You have just made the highest possible gift, a portion of yourself. You have activated a beautiful and highly creative cause for another. You are a noble spirit, for you are a divine being. 2. In the silence of your mind, imagine that you are engaged in something undefined, but useful and beneficial to all whom it concerns. You are wonderfully enriched and fulfilled. Life is beautiful, and you feel marvelous in its free-flowing harmony. Hold 3 to 5 minutes. Practice this night and morning, the same 2 steps, and don't look for results. Assume they are present. Be happy, be light, and be smiling, and you will have much to smile about. I visualize you in the same ultimate ideal. Verse: if you think you can, or you think you can't, you are right. Henry Ford. End of chapter. Chapter 5. Out of the Blue. Verse: enjoy to the fullest the resources that are within thy reach. Pindar. For years I have talked with Jerry and Gary, my endearing sister and brother-in-law, about the creative process of our mind and how it reproduces our mental habits. We spoke about wishing for something, but holding the attitude of its absence and lack, thus giving cross signals to the creative process in our subconscious mind, and how wishing is itself a negative, as our habitual thoughts and attitudes are highly creative and perpetuate themselves in our experience. We discussed the fact that whatever is predominant in our thoughts is a direction of our lives, and that wittingly or unwittingly we are each, thought by thought, shaping and molding the quality of our own destiny. We observed the lives of various people and saw that their attitudes corresponded with their experience. Whether happy or disenchanted, well or ill, financially affluent or depressed, we noted the cause equals effect. We remarked that young children should be taught in school the tremendous importance of the creative process of their minds and how to create and sustain a healthy and productive mental attitude. During one of these conversations in which we shared our most recent successes of the creative laws of our mind, Gary remarked that he had never engaged in a discipline of imaginal experience to demonstrate increased finances. He suggested to my sister Jerry that they choose a figure and invest some daily creative time toward this goal. She liked the idea, and they settled on a figure of $150,000. They had fulfilled other goals. Why should the creative process not work for money as well? Knowing that this meant engaging in a discipline of well-stipulated creative time in which they must rehearse the consequence of their desire as already realized and endowed with life by feeling, they resolved to make it a very serious project. Carefully following all the rules, the most important of which was sustaining the sense of joy and celebration about the results of the fulfillment, they set out on their inward journey. The story follows as the two related it to me in happy animation. We felt that our energies were highest in the morning, so we decided to do our creative rehearsals the first thing after waking, and sitting rather than lying in order to remain awake and alert. So we began and found it to be both easy and pleasant to imagine that we were experiencing really fun things in places that we both enjoy. We got off to a good start and agreed that we would give the project our very best and faithful attention. Assuming that this additional $150,000 was already added to our investments, we chose to increase our travels to new and exciting horizons. Having enjoyed several cruises, we selected another direction and imagined that we were on a long voyage. While sitting in the big lounge chairs at home in our den, we each surrounded ourselves with the impression of an imaginary ship. Entirely forgetting where we actually sat, we experienced in sensory detail a variety of pleasant activities. We felt ourselves in our attractive stateroom and engaged in conversations about the pleasure of the trip. When we went to bed at night in our own apartment, we imagined that we were aboard ship, that we felt the slight motion of the waves, and we thought of home as being in the opposite direction of our travel. We looked for inspiration from books, music, and selected television programs wherever possible, as we found that our rehearsal of our dream come true felt more real and was more pleasurable when it began on a happy note. Realizing the benefit of directing our highest energies of the day into our creative practice, we spoke to no one about our project. We find that all our plans work out best when we talk about them only after they happen. After 1 month of daily practice, we felt that our goal had been fully conceived and that it was now forming and developing in our subconscious. We spoke very little about it to one another, just a few words to communicate our bright spirit and our teamwork. At the end of the 2nd month, we noticed a broader perspective in our attitude about our financial security. It seemed that we had grown and expanded mentally, but there were no signs of any change. We invested our time in a 3rd month, and at the end of this time there were signs, but not the ones we counted on. Both of us had begun to weary a bit, and doubts crept in as to whether or not our dream investment would ever pay any dividends. Yet neither of us wanted to admit this to the other, nor even to ourselves. Feeling somewhat discouraged, we continued our daily practice, and I found myself rehearsing new scenes to enliven the routine. Neither of us had made any decision as to how long we would continue our rehearsals, but we knew that we were not ready to give up. Now we had reached the end of our 4th month of creative imagining, with the only sign of change being that our drooping spirits. Still, we withheld discussing it, as each of it felt it would be discouraging to the other. We both wondered if the magnitude of one's desires might influence the time required for it to develop into the creative subconscious and move from the subjective to the objective domain. Did money not represent its equivalent in energy? Perhaps we had not fulfilled the requirements for the money we had accepted as being already ours. We wondered how a higher or lower figure might have affected our practice. Would $1,000 have been easier to demonstrate than $1 million, for example? As we each wrestled silently with such questions, we realized that we had made a 4-month investment of daily practice time and were faced with the beginning of a 5th month. What should we do? Should we stop the rehearsals and assume that our subconscious was sufficiently imprinted and would objectify our plans in due time, or should we continue until either it appeared or it became clear that something was missing in our practice? At this point, the phone rang and an unfamiliar voice asked to speak to Gary. From the tone, it was clearly long distance. Watching Gary with curiosity about the identity of the caller, I noticed that suddenly his face became flushed and his eyes widened in surprise. From his answers, it was evident that he was being asked to identify himself very thoroughly. Was it possible? Could it be? Did I dare to hope that this was a great moment of truth? Gary hung up the phone and shouted excitedly, "That's it! That's our $150,000, right out of the blue." We both hugged, laughed, and danced around the room, exclaiming, "It worked! It actually worked! And we'll have the money within a few weeks," said Gary. Well, it came, and as you know, and the check was even more than we expected. After taxes, we received $167,000. But what was its source, I asked? The lottery, a tax refund, the winning of a contest, or a horse race? Nothing of the kind, they answered excitedly. It was from the last source you could possibly imagine. Do you mean, I queried, that it was something that you could never have expected? Never in a million years, they assured me. All this occurred only recently, and you can well imagine that their $150,000 is now well invested, and that they are reserved on another exciting cruise to exotic places. Inspired by their successful effort, they are now working on a new project and plan to continue one after another. Man is truly in his element when he is in the process of creation. When he ceases to be creative, he declines. It could be said that life and living is the continual creative process. Gary, speaking words of wisdom, announced, if only people knew that they can fulfill their own dreams by living in them in the present. Verse: the subconscious is the womb of creation. Whatever the mind of man can conceive and feel is true, the subconscious can and must objectify. Neville Goddard. End of chapter.